Do you want me to?
Hi guys. Welcome to another Create in 30. The format for the show is that we spend 30 minutes showing you how to repurpose or to use your content to create compelling content. This week is all around repurposing, specifically for blog. As you can see, I'm not live on camera today because we're using my screen to show you behind the scenes. So I will be going into a blog post shortly. During this show, during the 30 minutes that we run the show, I will be creating a blog post around the show. So as we're discussing things, I will be live updating a blog and showing you guys how you can do that, and all the best things to do there. As always, I'm joined by the lovely Sarah Moore, who co-hosts with me every week. And today, thank you very much, Sarah, for reminding me on the time. I'm currently away from home, and my phone was actually off, so I hadn't noticed how late it had got in the morning. So yeah, we're here at the same time every week. So it's 8:30 Australian Eastern Daylight Time. So yeah, you can always find the link nice and easily. It's at blab.im/create in 30. That's CRE, the number 8 IN30. And it's also live on both of our handles, which is at _Sarah, SARAH _Moore, MOORE, and at ATW Networking. Follow us both on Twitter and on Blab. Hi, Sarah. How you doing this morning?
Hi, good. Better than you, obviously, because I remembered the show.
busy morning. I'd remembered the show. Yeah. For some reason, I had it down in my head as being a different time because a lot of my other shows are a little bit later in the day. So apologies. with traveling and stuff, it thrown me all out. So I'm going to flick over here, which means I can't see the show. So yeah, if you want to kick in and explain to people why you do it and stuff like that, and I'll do some updating on the blog while we're going. So
cool. So today, as Tristan said, we're talking about repurposing for your blog, and we're going to show you a bunch of different ways. Actually, we're going to touch on a bunch of different ways to repurpose for your blog, but we're not going to go into everything in detail today because a lot of those things can kind of warrant their own show in a way. So one of the things that Tristan and I noticed is that people are creating content a lot in video form. So particularly, we're speaking to our Blab audience here when we say this, but you guys are all on Blab. Most of you are doing shows, if not your own, and joining in on others. And so we were looking at that aspect of things going, one of the hardest things is, business owners and bloggers is actually constantly creating content and being original and being unique and being new and trying not to rehash what's already out there. So we were looking at the fact that we're all on Blab every week, most of us here. I don't know everyone's unique story, sorry. But most of us are on here hosting a show, being on a show, or contributing, or in the chat in shows. And we're like, okay, well, what can we do with this? And one of those things that we can do is we can take the content here, because if we record it, it's ours. And then we can take it elsewhere and repurpose it elsewhere. And we've talked about, what was the other repurposing one we talked about? I'm losing.
So we discussed all the different ways.
Canva.
Could
That's
repurpose,
right.
Yeah.
We repurposed with Canva. So we looked at how to create graphics in Canva. But today we want to talk about how we can put something like this into the blog without just saying, here's our Blab, although that is probably going to be one of the ways.
Yeah.
So as you can see, Tristan's typing up a blog as we speak. And so one of the ways that we can actually do this is, you can handwrite a blog about the content that you've spoken about. So we can go back afterwards, re-listen to this, or just remember what we said, the key points, and go and write a blog about it. So that's that's probably one of the easiest ways in terms of just not actually doing anything with the video, but more just doing stuff with the content that you remember. And you can even do that through the show. Like as we're doing, Tristan's got his blog out and he's blogging, but I've known Tristan to actually do this through shows before as well. So the idea about our repurposing too is that we're trying to repurpose in a way that's time friendly, because we don't want to be sitting here for 4 hours a week repurposing. So one of those ways that you could do that is you could have Evernote open or Word open or something like that. And every time there's a key point, just write down that key point. You don't need to be writing it word for word, because what you can do is go back later and elaborate on those things. And that's probably better if you're writing, because you're not going to say word for word what's already been said in there. You're going to round out the key points rather than say word for word what people are saying. And it's probably a better way at the end, because you're wrapping up. Because as people are speaking, they're often thinking on the spot, they're coming to their conclusion. Whereas once you've already heard it and you can write it, you can be a bit more succinct. You can get to the point. You miss out all the all that kind of stuff. So that I am so good at. So that's one of our ways of repurposing content, and it's probably the most obvious, to be honest. Tris, I'm going to touch on the other way to do that without going into it. So one of the other ways to actually do exactly what I just said is to get some dictation software and put the blab through that and get it basically put into blog form through the dictation. That normally costs for that software, but Tristan has found a little secret. So you might have to tune into another show to hear that one.
Yeah, we're gonna go through that one fully in another show, because that's a whole topic in itself. How you can do that, especially if you're hosting with another person. There's a couple of little tweaks and things that you'll have to do in order to make that work efficiently for you. So that we're going to make a whole show. In fact, are we doing that next week, Sarah?
That's what we're doing next week.
Yep.
But that isn't something to keep in mind, that you can literally dictate to the software. On that note, just while we're in this ballpark, you can, if you're not a writer, because here's the thing, right? Here's my little bandwagon. Everybody, well, not everybody. There is a certain portion of the population that's resisting video because they don't want to be on video. They don't feel confident. Video is not their thing, right? Meanwhile, I feel like I found heaven when I found video, because I like looking at myself and talking to myself, obviously. But what I wanted to say is that video to me is the blogging of the 2000s. So what I mean by that is, I don't think everyone was born to write. No, I don't think everyone is born writer. It's a skill that we've learned. It's something that we've done purely because the form of the day has asked for it. And people have had to do that to have SEO, to be featured with other people. Basically, people have had to blog, right? So I see video the same way. The internet is moving more and more towards needing video for ranking and for, hang on, my child's just here, bye-bye. For ranking, for SEO, for things like that. It's the thing that Facebook is giving organic reach to, so you're not having to pay. So my point is, everybody needs to actually be starting to use video. And my point is that what I'm getting to is that a good way to learn to start speaking and get some content out is to start dictating your blogs. So start to sit there with your software and start actually saying your blogs. Start practicing for when you need to speak in front of a camera, because we're all moving that way. I kind of lost my train of thought then, because I'm being interrupted very heavily to my right-hand side. But yeah, we need to be on video, but also if you want to practice the skill of speaking, start dictating your blogs, and especially if you're not a writer. I think that's the point I was making. A lot of people aren't writers, but they've had to write. A lot of people don't want to be on video, but you're going to have to be on video, so you may as well train for it now.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And I mean, obviously within bigger companies are looking at who who the best person would be for that. So obviously there'll be people who are much more inclined towards kind of public speaking and therefore being on camera and being much more visible people within the company. But that being said, like Sarah was just saying, it is important now with the internet kind of gearing more towards much more visual and video based formats that you learn to become comfortable with that and to create your own unique style. I mean, if you consider Periscope, and like Euromaestro has become a big thing on Periscope, and for a long time was not even visible on there because he'd created his own unique style of how he could deliver his content and what he was delivering. Obviously teaching things, people want to get to know the person who's doing it, so being more visible on the camera is kind of going to help with that. So yeah, it's really important to consider what you're doing with your video and look at all of those different elements. So
yay. Okay.
I just want to say, acknowledge everyone who's in the chat. Some great comments and tips and links being dropped in here as well for bits about copywriting and how you can do some repurposing using dictation software. So thanks guys for dropping that in there.
Cool. So the next thing that I wanted to bring up the GIFs because I saw you on there. Is that cool? You're not ready for that? No,
yeah, you can go with that. So
okay. So one of the things that you guys would have seen heaps and heaps and heaps, and it's becoming a little bit of a Twitter thing. I know many people who use them on Facebook, except a little group I'm in. But there we go. There's a GIF. GIF, sorry, GIF. Oh my gosh, I'm saying it wrong. And it is GIF. Them's the rules. I didn't make them. I'd rather say GIF. But there's the GIF. So you can add those into your blog post. I will say this. Be careful how many that you add. I have read blog posts where every single point they make, they put one. And it is I want to stab the blog post in the face. It's horrible. There's too much going on in visually because it repeats itself. So if you've got like a GIF at the top and a GIF at the bottom of the page, it makes you feel like you're going crazy. So just limit it, or at least make sure if it's a long blog post, you're putting them so that when you're scrolling, the last one's definitely gone by the time the next one comes through. So I mean, I think GIFs are probably more fun in Twitter. But I mean, you can put them in a blog and they have their place. But I love the fact that Twitter is so fast moving, allows for GIFs to go through and they're not annoying. So, yeah, I just wanted to add that recommendation. So are we showing people this week how to actually create a GIF?
We can do. There's a couple of different tools, and obviously it depends whether you're on Mac or on Windows. I'm creating on on a Mac, so I've got a great piece of software. Let me see if I can just bring it up. That's called GIF Grabber. So can you see my pop-up of my? I'm not sure if you can see. Can you see my applications window? Okay, so the GIF Grabber, the little guy with the glasses on down the bottom here. It's really nice to use. Basically, it gives you a little tab at the top that when I drop this down, so here's some I've recorded at other times. So there's Sarah at the top, string story, and then another example from Blab. But you get I just put it over Sarah's face so you can see it. You get this little crosshair that you can actually just move, resize, and then as you can see, there's a little red tab at the top that's a start capture here. So there's Sarah shaking her head. Stop it, and it processes, and then it appears in your window. Now there's a couple of different ways here. You can actually, when you open this, you can either just hit get URL. However, you have no control over where that goes and being able to go back and find it later once you've closed GIF Grabber. So what I do is I normally save it. Oh, I totally spelled that wrong. It's awkward. Sorry, I just spelled your name wrong, Sarah. That's awkward.
That's all right. I forgive you.
Missed the E in your name. I feel bad. But the thing is also, so once you've done this, I use, again, there's different places you can use. I use Jiffy, which just allows you basically to upload GIFs that you've used before. So if you notice, I can drop them quite quickly into conversations. It's because, oh, here's a whole load of people who have done stuff, interesting stuff on Blab specifically. So if I want one of someone pointing or laughing, I can generally go in and find one quite quickly. But it's just the upload to here, drag and drop, and then once, as you can see, the one that I put in here that's in the blog already, it gives you nice iframe embed, and then you've got other different embed options down here as well. So it's a really easy way to create them and put them straight into a post. And again, from them, you can get the URLs of them and then post them out for Twitter and things like that. So yeah, Victoria, I tend to stockpile them so that I can use them later and then drop them in at appropriate times. As you will have noticed from your global SM talk, I tend to have one for pretty much every occasion. So yeah, using those, it's a good way for being able to go back and get them to use, because quite often people create content and then don't think about the longevity of it, in the fact that, you know, there's things like this where if I wanted to put something that's quite impactful, as Sarah said, that I want to catch people's attention in Twitter, I could drop this into Twitter and then put like her tweetable bit around it as text. It means that as people scroll through the feed, that video plays and catches their attention. So that's kind of creating the GIFs really quick and simple. There's different bits of software. I'll have, like, I'll do another, probably a whole section on that because I quite like it. So, but yeah, we'll jump back onto the blog post using GIFs. I totally agree with Sarah in the fact that you don't want to overload it. People get super excited, as with anything that's new to them. Oh, this is brand new. I'm really excited about it. I'll put loads in. It can be too much. I kind of compare it to getting motion sickness. If you have too many in there, it's a bit too much going on, and so it's distracting from content rather than adding the value to the content. So consider that when you're putting stuff into your blog that is moving. Okay, so
what's next, Tristan?
So obviously I'm pretty much writing the content while we're going. So always when you're creating content, think about what's the end goal for my content. So while we're creating this show, we have a very clear intention that it isn't just this show here on Blab. It's going to be repurposed. It's going to appear on other platforms. We're going to do that. And with that in mind, considering things like, while we're talking, not saying, hey, my handle at the top, because when you look at the replays, it's not there. So bearing in mind what the output is in the end result, so that you get the content becomes usable on different platforms. So yeah, considering what you're going to use it for afterwards is really, really important, which is also the same as the more like people who intend to repurpose their periscopes, who then stop and chat loads to people who are in the periscope, doesn't necessarily make as much sense, because when you're watching it back, you're not, like, if it, depending how they've taken the video down, you might not be seeing all the comments and things, which then kind of doesn't make sense to what when you're watching it out of context. So consider all of those things as well. So yeah, consider what you're doing when you're creating the content in the first place. What we're teaching you is how to create good content and how to repurpose it. And with that, you need to think about that repurposing element when you create the content. So what's the end goal? Do I want to get a blog post out of this? Do I want to get a video for YouTube out of this? Or there's nothing wrong with having shows where you just open up and you're chatting and stuff like that, but bear in mind how that would be if you just caught it later. It would be out of context because you can't get involved in things. So yeah, it's definitely worth thinking about where you're going to use that content again. So like Sarah said, when we're talking in the blog post side of things, obviously I'm typing out whilst Sarah's talking, so I'm manually doing this, but you can obviously do this through the transcribing option, which actually, I'll give you a little heads up, we will discuss the fact that you can actually do live and post transcribing as well, which obviously that narrows down the time that you're using even more. As you can see from the blog post, one of my favorite phrases at the top here, work smarter, not harder. If you can spend an hour creating your whole week's worth of content, surely that's much better than having to, I mean, this is the problem that most people have, is that they think social media, I've got to create all this content, oh my goodness, it's going to take all this time, and every day I've got to do this. Well, if you're using your time efficiently, you should be able to create a lot of content in quite a small amount of time by doing this, where you get a big long blog post. We've got a video that we can put out on YouTube. We'll have tweetables. We'll have some animated GIFs that we can then put through. And all of that gets created inside the half an hour that we do the show. Obviously, there's probably about an hour outside of the show where we're doing that repurposing, you know, putting it in the right places and doing the YouTube upload and things like that. But if you look at that for an hour and a half, for the amount of content that you can get out of the half an hour show that we create, it is it's a much more efficient use of time than we generally see.
Yeah, and I just want to touch on what Vicky said. She said, guys, I spend a good 10 to 12 hours a week creating content for clients. I would love to streamline this. And I think one of the things that, you know, after talking about it, Tristan and I talk about content creation a lot. And it's really, if you've got one big piece of content or one main piece of content, everything else can flow out of that. That's what I'm finding. So that's kind of like the tip that I would give. If they've got a blog post or something like that, and you need to be creating images for elsewhere and different things for elsewhere, then just use that one piece of content and then create all of your stuff out of that piece of content, rather than trying to create new stuff every time. The other thing that I think is really good about that is it continues to speak the same message throughout the week to that audience. So some people will read the blog post or won't read the blog post. Some people will read the quotes. Some people will share those quotes. You continue to reinforce what the main piece of content says, and I think that that's really, really important. Like I do social for a church, and one of the things that I'm trying to get them to move towards is actually creating their own content, because they do messages every single week where they speak for, you know, half an hour or so in front of a church, the whole blog post. They've already written it out to speak from it. They then speak it. So we need to be filming that. And then once we've filmed it, we can repurpose from it all week, rather than me trying to find new content from other churches that maybe have a different message at a different time. And I know that seems like maybe a little bit of a random, I guess, business, if you like, to pull from, but I actually think it's a great example of trying to be on message until you've got your next message.
And I think that's a great point, is again, depending on the social areas that you're putting out. So whether you're using Twitter or Facebook or a blog, obviously the longevity of the posts that you're putting out on each of those platforms is different. So it's important to realize that having that, you know, like using the example Sarah's got of the church, where, you know, someone delivers a sermon, that's right now, and it's very captive audience and they're very engaged. But again, does life distract during the week, and would it be good to remind them during the week? And whether that is a tweet, which has a very short lifespan, or a blog that they might go and read that is slightly longer, it could even potentially be their email newsletter. So bits of them that they're doing it, and that constant reminding is just reinforcing something that you've already told. We actually do this a lot with our clients at All Things Networking. Is when we've had a meeting with them, we'll do a follow-up, and quite often the workshops that we do or the training we do each week is shaped by conversations that we've had with clients during the week, that then it would be great to follow up and show them how to do that. So going into a bit more depth and reminding them with those kind of things. So it's good. But yeah, this is basically just a way for you to really streamline the amount of time, because obviously the more time you can claim back, either the more time you can relax or the more work potentially you could do. So it's kind of a balance between being able to help more people, if you're someone who's creating content and managing social for other people, and flicking back over and gaining back your time. I mean, a conversation I've had with a client was, what would you do with an extra 2 hours a week? And that's a really important question, because essentially if you get really good at creating compelling content in a short amount of time, what you're doing is reclaiming your time, which is obviously your most valuable asset.
Agreed. So what's the next one, Tristan?
So I'm just going to punch into the thing about the transcribing. So I've put in about the use of video, use of GIFs. I guess it's tweetables. We've done it before, but if you just wanted to touch on that again, around the doing the tweetables and good practice for doing that, whether it's and I guess the combination between images and just text-based ones. So if you wanted to just touch on that while I update this, so we can get this finished.
Yeah, sure. And then I was going to see if you wanted to talk also about the YouTube versus Blab replay.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. About that as well. So tweetables. So one of the things that Tristan is king of and has actually taught me to do is to listen for little nuggets that people say throughout their blab. And I mean, if you've already got a written blog post, if you're not actually blabbing yet, you can just take tweetables from your own blog post. But one thing Tristan does is he listens for just like a key sentence or something like that. He has a templated image already created in Canva, as you can see there, and he will just drop that quote in there and tweet it straight out. So that's something that you can do. So I have a whole bunch of templated ones that actually took me quite a long time to make for Global SM Talk, and we've never used them because we're all too busy talking. I think it's our personality. We need like one of us to just be dedicated to that in the blab. Yeah. But that is something that you can do. It's really simple. It's really fast. Once you've got the actual template there, it's like literally a matter of 30 seconds if it takes you that long to type out the actual quote. And it's a great way as well if someone's saying more than 140 characters to get 140 characters on Twitter in a meaningful way.
And I mean, that's it. Victoria said on the last Global SM Talk, how is it that you get those out so quickly? So Victoria, this is, as Nate Haig would say, a little peek under the kimono of how we do that. So having those things ready to go. So actually, when I start out doing tweetables, if it's someone else's show, I would have, so for Global SM Talk, I would have 3 different things open. So I would have Sarah, Colleen and Vicky's open with their handles, the Global SM Talk hashtag and the quote bit, and then just a letter, just a random letter. So it would look like this. When I start, it looks like this, because this is just a placeholder for the text, so that I can just click in and then I can just add in the text that of what they've said, that tweetable, and then download it and put it straight out onto Twitter. Which also, the reason that I do that is because it also drives more traffic back into the conversation that you're having live on Blab. So that's a really good one. So
yeah, and if you haven't met Nate, follow Australia Wow on Twitter, and he's on other stuff, but yeah, I would just follow him on Twitter at least for now. So that's tweetables for you. You can kind of get away with doing a lot of them because Twitter moves so fast, and that's what I love about it as well. That's something also that you can just repurpose for Instagram and Facebook. So the beauty of Canva is that it has the template sizes for those platforms, and you can just, once you've created the one for Twitter, you just go back, copy and paste the quote and chuck it in the correct sizes for the other platforms, and then you've got content for your other platforms as well, optimized to the correct sizing. So yay! Yeah,
absolutely. And with that, I think we're fairly there on the types of things that you would use. And I mean, those graphics that you use as tweetables, obviously you can use those to reinforce something in your blog post. So you might have created it for Twitter, but it's a nice little banner that you could drop in the middle rather than, and if you do put it in, do put the text of it as well. From an SEO point of view, obviously you want the text on the page as well. So drop it in. It's a nice graphical thing to break up like a big block of text, but it's a different way for people to consume that content as well. So we are just wrapping up, actually. I think we've got about 2 minutes left because we were running a little bit late when we started today. So, hey, Nate is in the house. Good to see you, Nate. Thanks for jumping in. We were just talking about you, and as you can see, people very keen to hear what you're doing. Sorry, Nate, we do a half hour show, so.
I was just saying in the comments, Vicky meet Nate, Nate meet Vicky. So Vicky's in the UK, and Nate's going to be there in December, so they should meet, because a lot of us talk about you all the time, and just extending the network.
Yeah.
Anyway. Cool. So we're nearly done. We're nearly done, aren't we? We've got nothing else to say, except you just wanted to say the thing about YouTube and versus Blab in terms of the.
I'm just actually going to jump out and back in, so I'm on camera to finish.
Okay. Okay. Yay! I can dance or sing for you guys if you like, because I'm here on my own. Just kidding.
Hey. So there's when we're talking about the repurposing side of things, I just wanted to touch on that video usage, because obviously there's the options to embed your blabs where people can come and consume the content again, either here or where you've embedded it. But also for discoverability, this is something I was having a big conversation with Nate with yesterday over a tea, believe it or not a coffee, about how you need to make yourself as discoverable as possible, which is the same reason that you go to various different platforms with the same content. So it's really key to decide what you're putting where and why you're doing it. And I'm a strong believer that YouTube is a good platform for discoverability if you're optimizing it well, which is maybe something we can touch into as a whole topic. I'd love to bring Nate in to have a discussion on a show if he's free for a show at some point, to do how to do that well, how to put it on video and make sure that it's optimized for people to discover your video content where you're redoing that. So with that, I think we're gonna wrap up. But if you're free, Sarah, I'm cool to hang about for a little bit for people to jump in if they want to afterwards. But we're going to wrap up the recording now because we like to keep it down to that 30-minute segment, because like we said, we do repurpose. What I will do is I will tweet out the blog post that you've seen us creating during the show, just tidy it up and finish that, and then we'll put that up. I'll also, if you hang about for about 5 or 10 minutes, we'll be dropping the link for next week's show and what it's about as well. So thanks again to everybody who was here on Blab. Thanks to everyone who's watching this on a replay, whether it's on YouTube, Blab, on a blog, wherever you found this. It's awesome that you're following us along. If you want to watch the show and get involved live, it's blab.im/createin30. That's CRE8IN30. And you can join us there. That's the lovely Sarah Moore and myself, Tristan Griffiths from All Things Networking. It'll be awesome if you could come and join us, and we love hearing all of your feedback throughout the week. If you want to use the hashtag, it's CRE8IN30. You can use that on any platform, and we'll be picking that up because we're monitoring the hashtag. So thanks a lot again, guys, and thank you, Sarah, for being an awesome host this week whilst I was tapping away on the computer.